Hi there, and welcome back to Prices at the Pumps, our weekly look at all things energy related, right here on SaltWire. I'm Scott Squires, pleased as always to be joined by the gas wizard, the energy expert himself, Dan McTagg. Dan, I know that you're busy today with what's going on in Quebec and Ontario price-wise. We can get to that in a couple of minutes, but let's start right off with Atlantic Canada. Prices adjusted in this region Thursday in Newfoundland and Labrador, and Friday in the rest of Atlantic Canada. So start off, if you would, please. What are consumers going to expect at the pumps tomorrow in Newfoundland and Labrador? And then you can hit us up with what's going to happen in the rest of the region Friday.
Well, Newfoundland Labrador is going to see a 4-cent net increase in gasoline prices. That's because the full effect of the switch from winter to summer gasoline that we saw prompted pretty big price increases last week won't be the end of the line. In places like Ontario and Quebec, it's more like 14 cents a liter. So you're still good for another 5, maybe even 5 cents a liter, 4 to 5 cents a liter for Newfoundland. The good news is that diesel should drop probably about, if we're lucky, about 2, maybe 2.5 cents a liter. So gas up if you need gasoline, and hold off if you need diesel or heating oil. Same for the rest of Atlantic Canada. Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick will all see the similar increase, despite last week's increase. So places that aren't comfortable with $1.88 to $1.90 are going to be really upset when it's more like $1.92 to $1.96. You're now really on the door's edge of $2 a liter, and you would have been there had there not been a muted response by markets to Iran's attack of Israel. So this is really the trifecta, the three factors. Carbon taxes driving up prices, a weak Canadian dollar, the result of net zero government climate policies to block pipelines, so we can't get enough resources to the rest of the world. Our Canadian dollar is weak. That adds 34 cents a liter to the price of diesel and gasoline. And of course, the switch over from winter to summer blends of gasoline. It's a thing, it's real. And of course, it's one of the reasons why we're spending as much as we are.
Dan, we talk about fundamentals all the time. And in particular, you talk about fundamentals and how they're kind of out of whack. You mentioned what happened with that attack by Iran on Israel. And even though the majority of it was thwarted, that's huge news. But as you said, kind of the markets really didn't react, where once upon a time, the conventional wisdom would have been, price of a barrel of oil on the market going to skyrocket. What's happening, Dan, when something like that takes place and the energy markets kind of go, meh?
Well, the cynic in me says that some Democrats in the United States who have extraordinarily strong positions with respect to investment, here I'm thinking the ESG guys, the BlackRocks and others, are basically know that an increase in energy prices will be the doom of the Biden administration. The United States and Americans take their gas prices very seriously, more than anything else. And having spent time there working with most media, I can say that with absolute authority. But there is the other factor, which is that markets saw this as a bit of a nothing burger. And that's the wrong approach to take, because it's the same reason why suddenly we find ourselves with oil that's $15 more expensive than last year, why gasoline prices are about 15 cents more than last year, and why we're seeing a Canadian dollar that's extraordinarily weak. It's a misread, but it does come back to what you and I here at SaltWire, Scott, have discussed for some time. I agree totally with OPEC. Energy markets are dysfunctional, and they're being run by woke ESG capitalists who, frankly, have a political agenda as opposed to ensuring the viability and safety and security of our supply in an affordable price. So we've lost on all those fronts. And unfortunately, I'm now hearing rumors that the Biden administration is yet again foolishly thinking of dipping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which has already been depleted by some 40%. In order to save their hides come November, when there is an election there. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I have no skin in the game, but I can say with absolute certainty, releasing oil when it's $80 a barrel will only lead to a circumstance where that oil will be $100 a barrel, and buying it back will be impossible.
And then I referenced Ontario and Quebec prices just a few minutes ago. When I was messaging you before we were recording this about, hey, Dan, you good to go? And you said, I'm super busy. I got a lot going on because of increases and everybody wants to talk to me. What's going on with price? I know this is an Atlantic Canada centric interview. We like to talk about things Atlantic Canadian, but some things can happen across Canada that can affect things here in Atlantic Canada. So what's going on in Quebec and Ontario with prices, and why is it happening, Dan?
Well, overnight, we're going to see in Quebec and Ontario what we saw in Atlantic Canada, an unpleasant and unwelcome increase of 14 cents a liter in Ontario and Quebec. So, the 165 they're paying will be 180 by tomorrow. Quebec will be going from, where they've been for past a little while, 174 all the way up to 189. So they're catching up with Atlantic Canada in terms of prices. But that's why there's a bit of shock in having predicted these prices. We've done so many times. And I said it to people, look what happened. Atlantic Canada's coming next week. Oh, ho-hum, yawn, whatever. No one thinks about these things until it really happens. Below all the numbers and why these things are taking place, though, are real Canadians who are suffering. And they are not managing these increases at all. It is already a very difficult circumstance. So governments which ignore this are really going to have to account for this sooner or later. And we know who they are. I'm not going to mention NDP and Liberals, but the reality is that when you have a circumstance where you're adding 32 cents, 35 cents a liter to the price of gasoline because of a weak Canadian dollar, because no one's interested in investing in this country, and you've told them there's no business case for our number one export, oil and gas, and then you add a 20-cent carbon tax, the first one, and you add another 5 to 8 cents for the second carbon tax, you're making a bad situation worse. If you took those policies under net zero away, you would find that in Atlantic Canada, the price would be about 55 cents a liter less than it is today. I can tell you right now, I would win in a landslide if that point was made very clear to every Atlantic Canadian. Nobody should be paying 55 cents a liter more than they should. In a country like Canada, blessed with an abundance of energy, yeah, we'll get to the climate stuff, but not at the expense of destroying the economy.
And then I know your time is short, but what other things are out there right now that's catching your attention, whether it was something that came down in the budget yesterday that could affect energy prices and things of that nature, but what's out there that's making your spidey sense tingle?
Yeah, I'm seeing weakness in the Canadian dollar again this morning. I don't think markets are very happy with what they saw. More debt, more compounded debt, more virtue signaling, no discipline. I don't think this is going to go very well as far as energy prices are concerned, but I think it's also going to hurt consumers. So not a very happy situation that's emerging. And when you're telling people with some money to that you're going to hit them even harder, well, they have options. They'll pack up and go. My bigger concern, though, is the exodus of capital from Canada is hurting all of us. No matter how we look at it, and governments are going to have to find a better way, not just to get our productivity and labor productivity up, but we're also going to have to find a way to make things a lot more affordable than they are right now for Canadians. Federal government spending more money, getting us into even deeper debt, only guarantees higher interest rates for the long term and debts that the country and many Canadians currently can't afford.
Last thing I'll ask you, Dan, here we are in mid-April, summer not that far away, and consumers like to think about vacations in the summertime. And I'm a driver. I like to take my vacations by car. Put your forecasting hat on just a little bit, knowing that so many things can happen to alter it. We've talked about $2 a liter threshold, and that may be, coming soon. And then, the 170, 180 a liter could be the new norm. But what do you expect roughly within a few cents that consumers will be paying for gas and diesel in the high travel months, the vacation months of July and August, and even into September?
Yeah, so May 2-4 weekend is the kickoff to our summer driving season, more or less, and the United States happens the same time with Memorial Day. That's always good for a 5 to 10 cent a liter increase. So if you don't like $1.94, $1.95 in Newfoundland, you're going to hate $2 on the nose. I think we're looking at $2 a liter as the new normal, pretty much for most of the summer, except for maybe some lulls in between, say, mid-June. And of course, maybe towards the first couple of days after September. I can't predict meteorology, therefore I know and don't know what's going to happen as far as hurricanes are concerned. But in almost every instance, when there is one in the U.S. Gulf Coast, expect another 5-8 cents a liter. So 210 could be the high end. 190, 195, which we're paying today, if we're lucky, will be the new normal for Atlantic Canada going forward, at least until the second to third week of September.
Dan, I know you're in high demand with other media outlets across the country, but we're certainly appreciative that you take time each and every week with us here on Prices at the Pumps and SaltWire. But when folks aren't with us here and listening and watching you on SaltWire. And I want to remind people too, we cut YouTube shorts and we put your content in short version up on YouTube shorts and up on TikTok as well. So a little plug for our SaltWire social media content. But where can folks find you when you're not with us?
Yeah. So, and on Gas Price Wizard, I do on Twitter, I do retweet these things. So it's important that people get the message. If they don't follow me, that they're at least following SaltWire and Scott Squire's work, which we do every week, which tends to be the first thing that we talk about energy wise. I don't get this many from any other media. So a lot of insights you have here, you won't get anywhere else, at least not until we've done this interview. But yes, president at affordableenergy.ca is my website. AffordableEnergy.ca, the website, and of course, the email I just mentioned. And of course, if you want to know where gas prices are going, gaswizard.ca gives you a same 1 or 2 day notice as to where prices are going right across the country.
Dan, appreciate your insights and expertise as always. Enjoy the rest of your busy day. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll catch up with you again next Wednesday and do this all again.
You too, my friend. Let's catch my breath now.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care, Scott.